So in this museum, there's a bunch of signs, and the number one threat of the Soviets at the time was someone who thought for himself. Now, as someone who is in leadership for their day job, someone who thinks for themselves is meant to be English. Someone who thinks for themselves is said to be a cowboy. I, again, am questioning my career choices. Check this out. So this tile looks like a bunch of stuff that I've seen in Albania. The wood looks like things that was on one of my childhood houses. So it's good to know that, wood paneling spans continents. And down here should be my tour group. Maybe. Because I recognize the language they are speaking. This is the registration room where you'd be registered if you were a prisoner and your belongings kept for not really safe purposes because, if you were committed, they became state property. We're in another Soviet building. The interrogation room with two-sided glass that you can hear and see straight through.
So there are two really small cells right next to each other. These are
I don't think this is a prison cell. Unless you're a hacker. Hack the planet. You can have a friend, and if you want to escape with your friend, you just climb up this ladder and you can stare at him from the top. I really don't understand this. A small cell like this, there was generally over 30 prisoners shoved in here. And this cell was heated up 24/7, 365. So, for every day of the year, it was over 30 degrees in their ovens. It's pretty rude. Now entering the party yard. There's no light in these, and what's hard to show on camera is that the ceiling is really high. It's like 4-meter ceiling. for 8 to 12 hours a day for the prisoners. People in this area, though, didn't really stay here for a very long time. This was more like a police station. So you were here only for a short time, whenever you were of interest to the people. And if you stopped being of interest, you either got sent to a big prison or sent to the grave. Or sent there. The cooking equipment in the kitchen was never cleaned. So everything, including the water, smelled of fish. Delicious. Or delicious. So all of these prison cells are on the bottom floor by the kitchen. And since fish was kind of the only meat used, you can imagine how they must have smelled. This one is interesting, as maybe it's an isolation area. There's really no place to lay down. While there's beds for two, it's likely that this is cool. And you can see where you should walk. So late at night, prisoners who were to be executed were taken from their bed and brought here. And most of the shots were done while the prisoner was standing, but you see some way up in the corner. And it's thought that those were done to intimidate the person. To the right, you see a door that leads to a garage. And in the garage was a truck to transport the prisoner out into a dark forest. On the floor here, you see some drains where cleanup was done. So they were able to wash it up. And here's kind of what it looked like, where you see plastic wrap on the wall, drain. Kind of reminds you of Dexter. So this is the old warehouse district, and it was built in the mid-1800s. It's located right next to the river, so it gave this area a perfect place to figure out what was coming in and weigh everything and measure everything before shipping it out to the rest of the city. While this was built by many different architects, one thing that the governor or mayor who commissioned the building said was that everything here had to look the same. So all of the architects had to agree on the front of the building, which is why they all look the same, because people agreed on the front of the building. Cool. So, like many other warehouse districts today, the warehouse district here in Riga is for the artsy people. But back during World War II times, this whole area that we're in was very different. In fact, it's what the Nazis used as the ghetto for the Jews to live. So, from what I can tell, there was only around 30,000 Jews in Riga. And that was enough for the other aubergine of the mid-1900s, Adolf Hitler, to send them all to a separate area. So, we're gonna go check out some of the stuff that's been restored and learn more about history. It's funny though how history is repeating itself. What once was Nazi Germany now is whatever Putin is. In this very small house, over 30 people lived. Have some bed. Wow. It was so cramped here with so many people living. They tried to make it as homey as possible. And in some of the authors that wrote about it, they were pleased with how they turned these very humble and tight living quarters into something that people could get away with. So in the early 1900s, nationalism was huge in Europe. People were celebrating their own countries. Well, over time, many of people of Jewish origin had settled in Europe, as you do. But one thing at the end of every Passover that they say, the Jewish people said at the time, I believe now as well, is next year in Jerusalem. And in Latvia, specifically around Riga, there was this huge movement started in the early 1900s to train young Jewish people how to cultivate land. And this exhibit recognizes a lot of the efforts that they did and a lot of their flags. People were called Batar zionists. I think I'm saying that right. And the reason that it's significant, I'll close the door. The reason that the Batar Zionist movement was significant is because if the Jewish people were to move back to Palestine, they had to cultivate the land in order to eat and in order to grow their food and stuff. And a lot of the Jewish people living in Europe at the time were white-collar workers. So they sent their kids to summer camps and all that sort of stuff to learn how to do that whenever they moved back to Palestine. So a bunch of the Jews from Germany ran up to Riga because this is where the massive movement of Zionism started. And whenever they ran up here, they were warning all of the people in Riga of what was coming from Germany, but the people up in Riga didn't listen. So this ghetto was around until 1943, whenever the residents who were still surviving here were shipped off to Kaisermold, down south a little bit. And now we're entering a train car of the type that was used to evacuate this area. In total, there was over 70,000 people from Latvia that were sent to the camps. Most who did not survive What we walk through now is an artist rendition who actually captured some of the stuff during the time she lived in the ghetto. Some photos, documents. I like this. As you can see, most everybody has the same end date. That's kind of surreal. So I hope I'm not in someone's backyard. And if I am, I will apologize. But en route of hunting for washroom, look what I found! I found a giant thingy. You guys, this is what we refer to as VR graffiti. Rawr. I have no history on it except that I'm in a very cool area with what looks to be like a good night last night. Oh, Puerto that's abierto. Oh, this is sick. You guys, I finally found graffiti. Okay, first of all, we have a nice harp. Look, finally graffiti. Yay! Usually, it's pretty easy for me to find art in some areas. This time I've not been able to, so I feel like if I were a people person, I would totally vibe with this type of... Hey! Do you need a hand, sir? 'Cause I see you got the leg figured out. I'm so in. Guys, this is what Burning Man should be. It should just exist right here in Riga.